And now the end is near, as Elvis often sang, but not without looking at the words. Yeah, we're finally here at 1977, Elvis's final tours, final concerts, and his final year, sadly. So he performed 55 shows that year, and they were all on tour. No more Vegas, no more Tahoe. So let's take a look at what I've got in my collection, and as I've done in previous videos, I'll let you know what other official releases are out there as well. So starting in February, Elvis had a good 6-week break after his great New Year's Eve show at the end of '76. February the 12th to February the 21st was tour number 1 from 1977. And the first thing I've got from that year is an LP. The Live Concerts series, Volume 1. I don't think there was ever a Volume 2. My Way. Why they would have a Jailhouse Rock era picture on the front, I have no idea. And why they would have an early 60s picture of Elvis on the back, again, I have no idea. This show is from, I can tell you by looking at one of my CDs. It's February the 21st, in fact, it's there on the front, isn't it? Yeah. Charlotte, North Carolina, February the 21st, 1977. And there is the track listing. They're a little bit naughty, actually, because they've put down That's All Right on side 1. But he didn't actually play That's All Right. What happened was, near the beginning of the show, after the usual fun and games with I Got a Woman and Amen, Elvis said he wanted to play the guitar. And so he plays Are You Lonesome Tonight and then Reconsider Baby. He then tries to play That's All Right, but his guitar has gone out of tune. And he tries to get it back in tune, but he gives up. He says, I haven't got time for that. And then he goes into Love Me. So he doesn't actually play That's All Right. Now that concert there is on the first FTD release from this year. At least chronologically, that is. That's this one here, the Last Tours Volume 1. Now by this point, they were no longer recording the beginnings of Elvis's shows. So all of the shows on this 4 CD set are incomplete. You don't get the beginnings of any of these shows. They tend to start from about the 4th or 5th song. And that LP that we just looked at there, it's the last show on this set on disc 4. And although the sound quality is better on here because this is a soundboard, whereas the LP is an audience recording, you do miss out a little bit because not only do you not get the introduction on the CD that you get here on the LP, you also miss out on some very nice little audience interaction, Elvis on audience interaction before he starts playing Are You Lonesome Tonight. You can actually hear a guy clearly calling out for Reconsider Baby. And his wish came true after Elvis had done Are You Lonesome Tonight. And it's a very funny version of Are You Lonesome Tonight. But you do get most of the music anyway on the FTD CD. So as I say, it is an audience recording, but it's a good show, that one. And yeah, so that was the first one from FTD. What else is out there? There is one more show available on a set called The Final Curtain, which I believe was a big book, multi-disc CD and DVD set that's apparently really difficult to get hold of now. But that's what I have from that tour. Then we are in March, after about a month off. Elvis was back on the road, March the 23rd to April the 3rd, and that is where FTD's next set comes in, The Last Tours Volume 2. This is just a 3-disc set, and you've got 6 shows on this set here. Again, none of them are complete because they weren't recording the beginnings at that point. The last 4 shows of that tour were cancelled, so in fact he didn't perform in April, at the beginning of April. There's also another FTD CD called Amarillo 77 from that tour. Right, we move on now to the next tour, which was later in April, April 21 to May the 3rd. I've got 1 CD from that. It's yet again from those wonderful box sets, A Profile the King on Stage. This is from box number 1, CD number 4. It's the Ann Arbor, Michigan show. I think they're all, Yeah, one or two tracks are from a different show, but that's basically where it's from. What else is available? There are a few bootlegs, a few more bootlegs available from that tour, and also the FTD CD Spring Tours '77 is taken from several shows from this tour, plus the previous tour in March. Once again, Elvis had a short break a few weeks before he's back out on the road. This time it was May the 20th to June the 2nd. Everything has been, nothing has been officially released from this tour. Although if you look on Keith Flynn's website, it seems that soundboards, most shows, if not all of them, were recorded on soundboard. So who knows, maybe that could be a future FTD release, the last tour's part 4 or 3, whatever. I do have one LP from that tour, and it's this one here. It's called Philadelphia '77, and according to the sleeve, it's May the 28th, 1977, and the date is correct, at least. He was in Philadelphia on May the 28th. There's a few tracks missing because it's just one single LP, and there's one slight mistake on the cover. You Gave Me a Mountain is listed as being on side 1, but it actually starts side 2. And also on side 2 you get all the solos, the drum solo, the bass solo, etc., but they're not actually listed on here. This is an audience recording and it's listenable. It's quite enjoyable. You can hear what Elvis is saying, which is the main thing. For me, that's one of the most important things with an audience recording. If I can't hear what he's saying to the audience, it's pretty pointless. But you can get this also on a CD with bonus tracks, and there are, I think, another couple of audience recordings out there with that same show on it, which are complete, but this one is not complete. And finally, we come to Elvis's final tour, June the 17th to, of course, June the 26th, 1977. I've got a couple of LPs from that final tour. Of course, one of them is the official release, Elvis in Concert. I think most of the songs on this album come from June the 21st, Rapid City, but they're kind of mixed up. You've got some tracks on, many of the tracks on disc 1 are from that show, and some tracks on disc 2 are, but then you've got some tracks on disc 1 that are not from Rapid City. But the way they've organized it, according to the sleeve, is that the ones on disc 1 are featured in the documentary, whereas the tracks on disc 2 are not. And I'll just show you the inside cover. You all know what it looks like. Those are certainly not 1977 pictures. This is a UK copy, so unlike in many other countries, it's got orange labels. And I would never rest if I didn't have Elvis's final concert appearance, and I believe this is it. It's a bootleg LP called The Final Days. I think it first came out on another bootleg called Adios. The Final Performance, I think it's called, in a red sleeve. So this is probably a copy of a copy of a copy. But having said that, it still sounds good. Just as The Final Days, white labels with The Final Days. An audience recording. I don't know, does a soundboard exist? Perhaps it was recorded on soundboard, and then whoever owned the tape at the time, you know, when Elvis died, they probably put it away somewhere or gave it to someone for safekeeping. I get the feeling it might be out there, but who knows if it'll ever surface. It's not a bad concert for Elvis to have gone out with. It's fairly typical set list and fairly typical performance for that time, but it wasn't his best performance, and it certainly wasn't his worst. Pretty good concert to go out on, I think. And I've also got a CD of that. This is the Japanese version, the original version in a fat jewel case. It later came out in Japan in a slim case. Well, a sort of a fat slim case. Thicker than a slim case, but not as thick as a fat box. And it was also released in Japan on a mini LP CD as well. So that's my collection of, well, Elvis live material in the 70s. Are there any concerts that you think I should have but don't have, having seen what I do have? Keep in mind that I'm mostly interested in, you know, soundboards or sound booths, or obviously multi-track recordings, not audience recordings. So anyway, yeah, I'd just like to end with a few thoughts, having listened to all these concerts, particularly over the last 12 months. I think I used to look at concert CDs, all the FTD CDs that were coming out, and I'd look at them and think, it's the same old stuff, CC Rider, I've got a woman, amen, love me, if you love me, let me know, love me tender. But I tend to look at it a different way now. It's like if I put on an album, a studio album that I really like, let's say, Elvis is Back. I've listened to that album, I must have listened to it over 100 times in my life. But it's always the same version of Make Me Know It that starts the album. It's always the same version of Reconsider Baby that finishes the album. It doesn't change. Whereas with a concert, it seems like you're getting the same stuff over and over again, but you're not really. Because, even if yet another version of CC Rider, it might sound very similar to the night before, but they are slightly different. Plus, with some Elvis songs that he recorded, that he performed live many times, there are great differences between them over the years. If you take a song like Polk Salad Annie, it starts out slow and funky in 1970, but it's just manic by 1974. But, they're all good versions to listen to. It's always fun to listen to Polk Salad Annie. So, yeah, I've definitely changed my mind about listening to the music on the concerts. But it isn't just the music. It's, I think, having listened to so many shows now, it's Elvis's showmanship that really stands out for me. I mean, he learned very early in his career that he was there to, as he said it, put on a show. If I just stood out there and sang and never moved a muscle, people could say, well, I can just stay at home and buy his records, is the famous quote he once gave. And he certainly did that throughout his career. I do love the moments between songs where you're kind of anticipating something to happen, for him to say something, or something to happen on stage. I love the interaction between the fans and Elvis, and between Elvis and the musicians. And his sense of humor really comes across as well on stage. Just like the remarks that he makes to some of the band members sometimes, his humor can be a little bit off color every now and again, but 9 times out of 10, it's just good fun. So I really enjoyed that side of the concerts as well. And I'm reminded of a comment that Elvis once gave. I think it was to promote the Aloha show, maybe in in a press conference in 1972, just before the Aloha concert. He was talking about the show and saying, we just want to entertain people. And then two words he said, which are really important. He said, no messages. And I think that's really one of the great things about Elvis. He didn't go out there and try and tell people what to think. He just thought of himself as an entertainer. And I think that would be a great title for an album, wouldn't it? A live compilation, Elvis, No Messages. Maybe they should have called Aloha from Hawaii via satellite, No Messages. I often find myself saying and thinking, there's never been a better time to be an Elvis fan. I look around at all the stuff that I've amassed, all the albums, the singles, and the cassettes, and DVDs, and Blu-rays, and books. Some really old stuff, some modern stuff. And as I've shown in previous videos, you can actually get a really good Elvis vinyl collection, for example, these days, not to mention a CD collection, for very little money at all. It really is a good time to be buying Elvis music. But on the other hand, perhaps the best time to have been an Elvis fan was between July 1954 and June the 26th, 1977, when Elvis was not only making music and making movies, but perhaps best of all, performing live on stage. Well, we finally got to the end of this series of videos. Thanks for sticking with me to the end if you've done so. It certainly took a bit longer than I expected. And as ever, if there's any comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. But thanks for watching again. Cheers. He certainly learned very early on in his career, right at the beginning of his career, in fact, that he needed to, as he said, put on a show. Because if he didn't, people can stay at home and listen to my records, as he put it. And I don't know, that might be terrible.